I'm joined now in the studio by Behnam Ben Taleblu, the Senior Director of the Foundation for Defence of Democracies. Behnam, great to see you again. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
So much to go off. The mixed messaging from the Trump administration. Let's talk about Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, who says we've only just begun this conflict, whereas President Trump this evening saying we're nearly there, it could be ending this week. What's going on there?
In between the president and the secretary is the battlefield. The battlefield will really decide. The president has political aims. The president has military aims. The entire cabinet, particularly the Secretary of War, is helping carry it out. CENTCOM in the Middle East right now is flying sorties in conjunction with, I would say, a historic operation where America and Israel are quite literally side by side, striking targets against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I know there's an intention to make a mountain out of a molehill here in Washington sometimes, but the battlefield will decide, and I think whether you're implementing the vision or coming up with the vision, this White House is keen to make sure that it wins on the battlefield.
I won't name names, but viewers of this show will know who I'm talking about last night. But there is this now sort of growing rhetoric that the people of Iran didn't want this. They didn't want military intervention. They didn't want bombs falling over their country. They didn't want so-called oil rain falling from the sky and oil flooding their sewers in Tehran. Is that the case?
Well, nobody wants oil rain, but the people of Iran have been trying for about a decade now to boycott the ballot box, to take to the street because the regime would not budge an inch. And they've been trying to protest peacefully and push past this state in its entirety. And every single time they turned out, whether it was motivated by an economic issue, a social issue, an environmental issue, or a foreign policy crisis, they have been slapped down like you wouldn't believe. And just this January, President Trump did for them what no U.S. president in the past 47 years of U.S.-Iran history did, which is he promised them support. He quite literally said help was on the way. You know, January 8, January 9, 30,000+ people were killed in 2 days under the cover of it.
But he's even now being accused of being responsible for those protester
many
deaths.
People accuse President Trump of many things.
Have you heard that?
I've seen it. I've seen people who turn a blind eye and say, "Why isn't President Trump supporting them?" And then when he comes and takes out the people doing their oppression, they say, "Why did you do it?"
They're saying he took too long. He encouraged people to go onto the streets, and they got killed as a result. And I think anything the president does, they'll just find a way to criticise him.
There is, as you know, the phrase Trump derangement syndrome.
Yes.
Some people are quite keen to avoid a president who's had so many foreign policy wins. They want to denude him of having any more wins, you could say, or disassociate him from winning anymore. But winning in the Middle East means turning the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism, which is an adversary, into an ally. That's not going to be done in 1 week or 2 weeks' time. The president had the right policy, maximum pressure on the regime, maximum support for the Iranian people. He needs to see that through. That certainly has a military element to it. We can't simply let this regime with the biggest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East be able to terrorize the region, and we can't let its repressive apparatus, whether that's the Basij or the IRGC or the law enforcement forces in the country, continue to run amok against what is the most pro-American and what is the most pro-Israeli population in that part of the world.
Are you hearing anything from the ground in Iran with regards to the people, the protesters, people who took to the streets? Has sentiment changed?
Don't leave us high and dry. Certainly the hellscape, and I will use the word honestly, the hellscape of seeing all of the massive fuel fires has frightened people. But that if there is a cut and run after that, there will be, I think, a little bit of, more than a little bit of bad blood. And I think that's why I think there's a real opportunity for the president to deliver not just a military victory, but a political victory.
So, of course, you can't speak for all Iranians, but the sentiment is...
A small sample, a selection effect.
But if the US pulled out now and stopped, because you've got those predominantly on the left of the argument, well, some Republicans as well, saying they never asked for this. They never asked for their schools to be bombed. They never asked for their oil depots to be blown up. You think if the US pulled out now or watered down their ambitions, the Iranian protesters, the people who want this Islamist regime out, you think they'd be thoroughly betrayed?
It would be disheartened. They would be strongly disheartened, yeah. There's no doubt that there is this caricature out there that the war is the product of some Iranian diaspora creation. No, the war is the product of the Islamic Republic of Iran launching a war against its own people for 47 years, as much as it's launched a war against the West, America, the UK, and Israel for 47 years. That's exactly how we got here. And unfortunately, those folks are too keen to ignore this track record.
We're just looking at live pictures now of Joint Base Andrews. President Trump has been in Florida this weekend. Of course, we heard from him giving some comments earlier to a Republican meeting. I think it was of donors. There he is, right on cue. I was going to say commentators curse, but it's the opposite. So President Trump leaving Air Force One now. Is Melania with him? I don't think she is. Yeah, President Trump heading to the White House after being in Florida. What's ahead, the week ahead for him now, President Trump? What has he got to focus on? Improving the messaging?
Certainly improving the messaging, making sure that every American knows the case for the war. This is a war of choice, but a war of choice, again, started by the Islamic Republic. The president's intervention here is a way to end that 47-year war of choice by the regime against America and against its people.
Okay, great to hear, and actually really fascinating to hear about the sentiment on the ground. Again, I know you can't speak for all Iranians, but that has been a big sort of whacking stick from those on the left saying the Iranians didn't want this. Yes, they wanted intervention, but they didn't want bombs falling on their heads. And I've been kind of saying, well, what if they were calling for intervention? What do they want? I mean, letters being sent to the Ayatollah begging them to behave themselves? I mean, what else could that have meant?
It's precisely kinetic. It's
right.
Precisely military. They have gone out into the streets unarmed against the world's most lethal terror forces in the world again and again and again. And even after January 8, January 9, after all these protesters were killed, Iranians turned out just 40 days later across two major urban centers, Tehran and Mashhad, protesting with slogans that if I said on this channel, I would be cancelled. That is bravery.
Well, you ain't getting cancelled here, but we appreciate you. Thank you for coming in. Thanks, appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.